The solar flare prophecy I gave a few months ago. The coming April eclipse, we could call it the Nineveh Eclipse. And of course, there's balloons right now, high altitude balloons over the state of Colorado, which is fascinating, which is where we are, where we live. And I want to say very quickly and very clearly to us, this is very important because the solar flare word, as you know, is a word I gave over the last few months multiple times. We'll show you the videos from the live broadcasts as we came out and prophesied, the Lord prophesied to us that there would be solar flares that would be happening, or they would say they're solar flares and use it as an excuse for outages. And of course, this goes back to the prophetic word we shared back on September 16th, 2023, when I began to see that word about Vegas and what happens in Vegas will not stay in Vegas. And that word has a lot to do with cyber issues, technological attacks, blackouts, brownouts, cell outages, all of this. So you do realize over the last couple days that one of the cell service providers, AT&T, had a nationwide outage. There's issues going on with that. The other word we've been seeing manifest more and more is the word we've given for the last year about issues with the airlines. And this is something that we're just praying about, working through right now. And I've got more to come on that, things that we're seeing with it. And there's a lot of relevance and things to consider. Let's get into this eclipse that's coming. It's the Nineveh Eclipse. Why is it such a big deal? Well, you realize that on April the 8th of 2024, there's coming a solar eclipse, and it's going to go across really the eastern side of the United States, and it's going to be like an X marks the spot. And it's the first one in 7 years. 7 years previous to this, there was a solar eclipse that went across the United States. This one, 7 years later, is now going to release a path that covers 8 cities that are all named, get this, Nineveh. And I didn't know that. And at the beginning of the year, the Spirit of the Lord prophesied to us during New Year's. And then even before New Year's, we were on Daystar, we were in a couple other places, and the Lord was ministering to me up through the fall. And the word for this year was America was going to experience a bowing of the knee through either Nineveh or fire. And I didn't realize this eclipse was a pathway with 8 cities named Nineveh, and 8 is the number for new beginnings. So there's a lot with this. Now, I believe the eclipse narrative was 7 years that led up to the eclipse. That 7 years since the last eclipse, I believe, has a lot to do with the hour of Joseph, where Joseph had 7 years of preparation. There will be a 7-year narrative, I believe, following that eclipse, that there's going to be a lot of faith to have light in Goshen. In other words, it's going to be like dark in Egypt in many areas and in many ways, because things are going to change radically, but it'll be light in Goshen. I believe we're going into that time where Babylon's going to get judged, difficulty's going to happen, and it's going to be light in Goshen. And so I've had this word again, that all these things are taking place. And I'll get to this high altitude balloon thing over Colorado in just a moment. And then I also want to mention this. I wanted to mention this, give all these words about the Super Bowl, things that are taking place here. But I believe that we are in a do-over season for a variety of reasons. But I believe we get a do-over so you can get another shot at doing it right. It doesn't mean it's going to be the same exact outcome. It means we get to do it again. That being said, this do-over word, where we're going after you watch, the Super Bowl, all these things, I believe that we are going into overtime. A time of overtime that's been a time in America or the nations. It's not just about America, it just happens to be where I live. But you realize we've been in a season of grace, but we are shifting from a time of grace to an overtime in a do-over season, a time of grace to a time, get this, of mercy. Mercy is where you do not get what you deserve. Why am I saying that it's mercy? Because in 2020, the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me while I was on a live broadcast, and I wrote it on the whiteboard that Roe v. Wade would be overturned with an unprecedented ruling. We saw that. We wrote it on the board. That happened then, just a few years later, as you know. And when Roe v. Wade was overturned, the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me and said, we're going to go into a time of mercy. So now there's difficulty coming, real difficulty. This cyber stuff is going to be induced. They're going to shout solar flare. You're going to hear this more and more, and we've been seeing this for a year now and saying it right on our live broadcast with date stamps. They're going to say solar flares, solar flares, solar flares. And as the solar flares happen, they're going to say it's solar flares, but my gut instinct, rather the Spirit of the Lord really, is saying that it's actually because they're inducing a lot of these issues. Because when I said what is happening in Vegas will not stay in Vegas, at the time I had that word on September 16th, I had stepped into a vision of Las Vegas, and I said, what am I doing here? At that exact moment, there was a cyber attack happening. And the Lord spoke to me and said, what is happening here will not stay here. And I believe that's why we're seeing outages, shortages, and a lot more is coming. A lot more is coming. Now, at that same exact word and that same exact vision on September 16th, the Lord also spoke to me and said, Israel will march in an unprecedented manner against their enemies. And I saw that, and then 3 weeks later, on the 7th of the following month, it happened. It happened. You can go back and look at the actual date-stamped live video. You can't go back and make live videos. It was live, and many of you remember it. So I see all these things happening, so what does it mean? Well, even as we're here right now, it's a do-over. It's a do-over. In another sense, even though it's not a do-over exactly of 2020, even though much of this is a do-over of 2020, the do-over we're seeing right now is a lot like what happened a year ago. Now we're seeing balloons over Colorado, my state, over America's mountain, which is Pikes Peak, America's mountain. So the word of the Lord is the red dragon, the lion, the bear, Goliath, or as we've talked about many times, the red dragon. Let the reader understand the red dragon is probably sending more of their, weather insights over some of our militarized places. And they're getting a little bird's eye view of things. It's a do-over. But this time, there's a confrontation to it. This time, the remnant is here. The red church is here. And it's going to rise up and press back against this. The do-over is coming. And I believe 45 and all the things that he has stood for. The Lord is trying to get him to the finish line to get him back in. It's the way it is. Could something derail it? Yes. But we must pray. I believe the prayers of the saints will avail much. And this is so vital, you guys. So vital. It's so vital. So this 7 years that the Lord had, I believe, given us a word and a warning of the first eclipse. Now we're coming to the second one, crossing into X. It's an X on the nation where this intersects. It's an X. Consider they're talking about disease X. Then consider Twitter turned to X. Now we got the X marks the spot right on the nation. And there's many things involving this X scenario. But the Lord is bringing answers to this contention. I was talking with Mario Murillo, Todd Coconato. I was on their awesome program, and I can't wait for that program to air. But I was on there doing Firepower with Mario and Todd. And those are two amazing men of God. And I'm on this thing, and we started to talk. And I realized, and Mario and I started a dialogue just for a moment about the coming 2 years. And I realized we're going to go into this, and I see this next year. It's like a year and a half that I believe if 45 does get in, it's going to be nuts. Okay, it's going to be a mess going in and a mess going past, and just so much in the air about it. But it's as if there's going to be challenge. And then I saw a year and a half where they began to kind of right size, and wherever all the dust settles, and it's going to be a difficult deal. I saw 25 being a year of fire, but I saw the dust settling after about a year and a half somewhere in there. And then I saw the next 2 years. And Mario was talking about the next 2 years, where the Lord's extending this time of mercy, even though it's going to get wild. But it's a time of mercy, no matter how bad it gets. A time of mercy for things to begin to right size or to open the door. And I believe a lot of it is tied to the federal decision of Roe v. Wade. I believe a lot of it is tied to those things. And the Lord is bringing answers. Listen, you don't have to be afraid of this thug demon spirit, because we could see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. What if, just like Nineveh, the impossible turnaround, We get an extended season of grace and mercy for another generation. Well, it really could be. But we got to pray, we got to act, we got to stand up to this wicked, demon, lizard overlord agenda. And the Lord's calling you. The Lord's calling you higher. It's your time. 1 year ago, January, I was in a meeting, and the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me. Spoke to me, and I mean spoke to me. There's prophetic ministry happening. The word of the Lord came across the auditorium I was in, hit me, and said, come up higher. Come up where I am, Joseph. I'm going to show you things to come. And I had to go to Revelation chapter 4 and pray that through. What does this mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? It has a lot to do with media. And I will be going on a trip soon. You got to be praying for me. I'm not going to give exact dates and times. But I'm going to go visit with Rick Renner the actual site we believe, not in the USA, but the actual site where we believe Noah's Ark is. And I'm going to go to that site, God willing, unless something changes, but I believe we can. Because I believe it's a prophetic act for the days we're living in. And I believe I'm on an assignment to do that. So thank you for your support. Thank you for praying for us, because I'm going to go on these assignments that the Lord tells me to as a prophetic assignment to really speak and stand on the ground, because the Lord's been saying, come up higher, come up where I am. I have things I must show you. And it's certainly not about this guy. I'm so unimpressed with this guy, but I'm highly impressed with the King of the universe, and I am his to command. And I believe that those of you who partner here and you're helping send us, you're sending us as a last days prophetic voice. My friend Troy Brewer prophesied to me, and he said, Joseph, your name is Joseph. It's a last days provisionary anointing. Joseph Z. Z is the end. It's the last of the sequence. It's a Joseph provisionary, last days, 7-year provision type ministry, prophetic last days anointing. Do you see it? I said, I do now. Thank you, Troy. And now listen, the Spirit of the Lord is saying to many of us, it's time to press through. This is not the end. We got a lot more work to do, but we got to gear up in faith. And I'm telling you, I feel great hope. I feel hope. And I feel hope for our partners. I feel hope for you. And if you want to partner, go to josephz.com, and I hope you do, because you'll get called regularly from us. We love our partners. If you're a partner here, we love you, and we're so grateful for you. But you only do it by going to josephz.com, or you text that keyword give to 719-259-0029. And the reason I say that is so nobody else scams you. There's no scamming stuff. You know it's us that's helping you and standing with you clearly and with integrity, because you can go to josephz.com. And I hope you do. We need your help. We've got a lot to do this year. It's a very serious year. Everything's on the table this year, and we need your help. I love you. Jesus is Lord. And I got a lot more I'm going to be sharing on this over the next little while. I hope you join us. Download the Joseph Z app. Go to josephz.com, and I will be live with you every weekday morning. I'm with you every day. Care about you. That's why we're here. Thank you for standing with us. We love you. Jesus is Lord. And if you would, repost this everywhere you can. I believe this is an important prophetic summary, and I'm going to get more into this over the next few days. Got a lot to share with you. I love you guys. Remember this, on a bad day, you're anointed to be the very best there is. I'll see you guys soon. Love you.